So we have an update as to the identities of the five major members of Retribution. Now, to be honest, this was officially revealed last night, not on WWE TV. It was actually reported by John Pollock of Post Wrestling. He had been informed by certain sources about the identities of the five members of Retribution. This has since been confirmed by Dave Meltzer, but I think, to be honest, if you are any particularly good online sleuth, you could have probably discovered who the members of Retribution are, because even though they are masked, it's not too difficult to suss out their identity. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes in this one. Nevertheless, we have the official internal roster, which names the five members of the Retribution stable, though their identities, as I mentioned, were already figured out by fans online. So a report came out last night from John Pollock of Post Wrestling that confirmed that the five members of Retribution are Dio Maddin, Mia Yim, Shane Thorne, Mercedes Martinez, and Dominik Dijakovic, each of whom are listed on WWE's internal roster. Now, Dijakovic and Martinez have been using speaking roles as part of the group. Last night on WWE In Your Face Raw, their identities were figured out quite quickly, and they both had speaking roles during their promo last night. As I mentioned, Dave Meltzer has also corroborated Pollock's report, so this is the main five. Now, of course, last night on Monday Night Raw, in the Go Home segment, the final segment of the show, we had the Hurt Business and Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee facing off against Retribution, and there was way more than five members of Retribution in that group. So they're doing what they've been doing for quite a while, to be honest, at this point. Retribution, the identities, we've known the main five. Like I mentioned, the main five there are Dio Maddin, Mia Yim, Shane Thorne, Mercedes Martinez, and Dominik Dijakovic. However, when they first made their debut at the Performance Center, when they were on Raw and SmackDown, they weren't any of those five. If in actuality, they were just standing. They were extras. I don't even think they were contracted WWE talent. They were extras from a local professional wrestling federation. I think it was one of the Wild Samoans trainees they had in that show, and that was for a variety of reasons at the time. A couple of them were obviously due to the testing procedures and getting them over to the Performance Center. That was difficult, so they didn't have them over. I don't think at that period of time also, WWE just hadn't decided who was going to be part of Retribution. Retribution was an angle that they thought of on the day very quickly, and then it was kind of a situation of, we'll figure out who's in it later on, and it looks like they finally figured out who it is later on. As I mentioned, if you watched the promo last night on Raw, and what happened last night is they interrupted a Hurt Business match, and again, it was Cedric Alexander versus Ricochet. Cedric Alexander defeated Ricochet, and then Retribution showed up and they cut a promo. And honestly, like, if you're even the slightest bit familiar with any of these names from their time in NXT, it's very, very obvious. Dominik Dijakovic has a very unique look and a unique way that he talks. Even if you put on a voice modulator, try and disguise his voice, it's very, very obvious that it's Dominik Dijakovic. The same with Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez. They're very obvious to the way they look that it's obviously them. And again, Shane Thorne and Dio Maddin, they were easy to suss out too. So it's not exactly surprising now that this report has come out, but it's nice to have some confirmation as to who are the people behind Retribution. Now, of the five, only Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez have been in action recently. Of course, they've both still been competing on NXT, whereas the rest of them haven't really been seen at all. Mercedes Martinez, of course, last week on NXT lost a steel cage main event to Rhea Ripley on the NXT Super Tuesday 2 episode, which then led to Robert Stone, who was a manager at the time, severing ties with her. Mia Yim lost to Shotzi Blackheart on an episode of NXT a couple of weeks ago, which, as I mentioned at the time during my review, felt to me like Mia Yim doing the favors on the way out. That's what it felt like. And now that Mercedes Martinez is no longer affiliated with Robert Stone and she's kind of disappeared there, she's probably going to be written off of NXT TV too. Dominik Dijakovic had been written off of TV during the attack by Karrion Kross in the build-up to Karrion Kross versus Keith Lee at NXT TakeOver 30. And to be honest, Dijakovic, Thorne and Maddin had all been inactive to different degrees prior to the start of the Retribution angle. Dominik Dijakovic, there have been rumours and reports that he was due for a call-up any time. This goes back to, it's got to be at least June, the early part of the summer. there was rumors Dominik Dijakovic is rumored to be coming up. He's going to be coming up soon. This was even back during the time that Paul Heyman was still the executive director of Raw. And Dominik Dijakovic at the time posted a series of cryptic tweets. This is before he completely blacked out his Twitter feed and started posting random numbers. He was teasing that he was going to appear on Raw. It didn't happen. And now, obviously, he's part of this Retribution angle. Shane Thorne last wrestled in July. And Dio Madden has been at the Performance Center, but I think also it's worth noting that Dio Madden had been part of the early Raw Underground segments too. So he has been involved in the periphery, at least. So that's your 5 members. You've got Dominik Dijakovic, Mia Yim, Mercedes Martinez, Dio Madden, and Shane Thorne. Now, what names really stick out to me there? Well, Dominik Dijakovic obviously sticks out because I think Vince McMahon takes one look at him. He's a guy that's nearly 7 foot. He can fly around the ring like a cruiserweight. His matches with Keith Lee were incredible. And if they can do those matches on a Raw or on a pay-per-view in the WWE, Vince McMahon will fall in love with him. I have no doubt about that. And we know Vince McMahon's affinity for big men in WWE. So I think he looks at Dominik Dijakovic and goes, that guy right there, that guy can be money. So I don't necessarily have a problem with Dominik Dijakovic being the leader of Retribution. I think I'm glad that he's getting the push. I've seen some comments that Retribution needs they need a massive star to be the leader of their faction. Do they really, though? I mean, honestly, why? I know factions historically have gone that way, but why not? Why not give guys a push? Why not try and make new stars? Isn't that what we've been complaining about for a long time, especially on Monday Night Raw? You know, you need to be making new stars. That was the whole point of Paul Heyman during his time there, was he was brought in to make new stars, and then ultimately he got the rug pulled from beneath him because COVID happened and WWE panicked because the ratings went down more than they thought it would, and they were worried, so they got rid of Paul Heyman. But this is a way to bring up 5 NXT superstars at one time and see what they can do. Arguably, my issue, I suppose, with the 5 people they've chosen for Retribution so far is, look, these weren't the biggest stars in NXT, and I'm not saying that to have a successful run on the main roster you have to be a big star in NXT, because historically, if anything, it's the opposite, right? If you're a big star in NXT, that kind of works against you on Raw and SmackDown, because for some reason Vince McMahon doesn't like people that were successful in NXT, and he would rather have someone like a Baron Corbin that he can create in his own image, or someone like Braun Strowman who didn't even come through NXT, just came through the Performance Center and had 5 matches. So maybe the fact that they weren't overly successful, and overly, maybe that's a bit harsh, but you know what I mean, not NXT champions or competing in main events, etc. Maybe that'll work for them. I'm really excited that they have 2 female members of Retribution. I think as a faction, especially in 2020, that's a necessity, and not for the political reasons and the gender equality reasons. The main reason I think it's vital to have female members of Retribution is that you can start going into different segments in the show. That's what's crucial here. I mentioned this about the Hurt Business previously when I spoke about them. What could make the Hurt Business so great, and I'm a massive fan of the Hurt Business, and I actually really enjoyed their entrance when they faced off against Retribution last night, is that if they had a female member or a couple of female members, maybe a Naomi, someone like that, then you can start touching all different segments of the show. You're not just involved in tag team matches, or you're not just involved in men's singles. Then you're involved in the female side of things. Then you can get involved in the female division. And suddenly the Hurt Business is touching all of these different elements of the show. And I think that's what's going to be good about Retribution is Dominik Dijakovic is going to at least try and be a main event superstar. Then you've got Mia Yim and Mercedes Martinez. Not only can they infiltrate the women's division, right? They can be singles women's wrestlers, but then also as a tag team, they can also infiltrate the women's tag team division, which is also really important because the women's tag team division in WWE is a joke. Support for Wrestle News 365 is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Now, Manscaped, for all of my UK fans out there, Manscaped just launched in the UK. Over here in the United Kingdom, we have gone for years and years and years without using the right tools for the job. But now you can be one of the first men in England to experience their life-changing product. But it's not just limited to all of the great fans over here in the UK. This offer goes worldwide, so all of my friends over in America and around the world that are listening to this offer still does apply for you. You can still use our code. But I've got to tell you a quick story first. Now, there have been so many times, right? I'm a guy. You gotta groom down there, fellas, right? That's the most important thing. You gotta keep yourself trimmed. You gotta keep yourself proper. And a lot of the time, I've been guilty of this, of using the wrong tools for the job. I've had incidences, I'm not afraid to say it, where things have been nicked, snagged, or in fact cut down there because I wasn't being careful enough and using the right equipment. Now that just shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. You don't want to be worrying about cutting yourself down there. Do you know how painful that is? I can tell you, it hurts quite a lot. And I wish and hope to God it never happens to me again, and it won't happen to me ever again because I'm using Manscaped products. That's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team has perfected the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. Big statement, but it's absolutely true. They have just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0 in the UK. It's also available around the world as well. Their third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. So those cuts and snags that I was telling you about before are a thing of the past. And let me tell you, when I tell you this is premium, I mean premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes so you can get a longer, perfect shave. And not only that, you don't want to be cutting yourself and trimming yourself all over the bathroom, getting hair all over the place. That's just disgusting. The lawnmower has a waterproof technology that allows you to groom in the shower, so no more mess. And one of the coolest features, one of my favorite features about the lawnmower is the LED light which illuminates grooming areas for a closer and more precise trimming experience. So you can shave longer, you can shave more precisely, and you can shave in the shower. What more did I need to tell you? They've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology, and let's not forget about the charging stand. You can show off your mower loud and proud because this intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. So, if you are listening to me speak right now, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Let's get that bush to tush clean, and you can get 20% off and free shipping. Yeah, you heard me right there. 20% off and free shipping. All you have to do is use the code 365wrestle at manscaped.com. Make your testes their besties. That's 20% off and free shipping. Not only are you getting 20% off, you're getting free shipping as well with the code 365wrestle at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code 365wrestle. Your balls will thank you. Really? I mean, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, I'm interested in their partnership. And I think that they did a good job on commentary last night. I enjoyed the post-match beatdown, and they're facing the Riot Squad at Clash of Champions. Cool. But the lack of depth in the women's tag team division is horrific, really. And they've just split up the Iconics. They're splitting up Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. They've split up Bayley and Sasha Banks. How many fully blown women's tag teams are there in WWE right now? Not many. Not many at all. So I like that we don't just have one, we have two females in there. They can go off into the women's single divisions, but they can also team up and take the women's tag team championship. I like that. Now, Dio Madden, I think is an interesting selection here because they can obviously play off the fact he used to be the color commentator for the show, right? This whole retribution thing, that it's in the name, retribution, they're looking for some form of revenge and try and claim that the system has failed them in WWE and look for revenge. What better revenge than saying, if you're Dio Madden, I used to be the color commentator on the show, and in reality, he went back to NXT because he didn't want to be a commentator, he wanted to be a professional wrestler, and he wanted to focus on his in-ring career. But they can obviously spin this of, oh, I used to be the color commentator for this show, but you cast me aside, told me I wasn't good enough, replaced me with Jerry Lawler, got in a 70-year-old man to place up-and-coming talent. That's where the priorities lie in WWE. You can do something like that, and I think that's quite compelling too. Obviously, Shane Thorne, I think the Shane Thorne element you can play up there is the fact that a couple of months ago, before MVP founded the Hurt Business and was with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, he aligned himself with Shane Thorne and a tag team partner on Raw too. And he can say to MVP, what, I wasn't good enough for you? You didn't give me an opportunity? Instead, you went to, again, these older veterans, these established names, because they can make you more money, like Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. You went for those guys instead of an up-and-coming talent. The system has failed me. So I'd like that. And then Mercedes Martinez, again, she can say, I've been around in professional wrestling for 10, 15 years, and I'm only just getting my chance. The only way I got to Raw and SmackDown was by invading it. The system failed me. Dominic Dijakovic, I think they could play up his relationship with Keith Lee, as Keith Lee is getting NXT Championship opportunities and North American Championship opportunities, facing Randy Orton on Payback, facing Drew McIntyre. I get my head squashed in NXT and forgotten about and cast aside. Where's your friendship? Where are you meant to be helping me? The system failed me too. So there is definitely a lot here that they can play up about the system failing them. And I do think it's interesting with the Mia Yim part of things, because ultimately their identities are going to be revealed. The whole point of a mystery storyline, for better or for worse, WWE's track record isn't great about this, but for better or for worse, they're going to have their identities revealed soon. So everyone knows that Mia Yim and Keith Lee are together. They've played it up on NXT. They tagged together in NXT against Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano. So what is Keith Lee's reaction when Mia Yim's revealed as part of Retribution? That's an interesting part of this. And I've kind of gone about this a different way here, because I'll be totally honest, I'm not sold on this Retribution angle. I think at this point, Retribution has been around for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and the argument that it's too early to judge, it's too early to tell if it's going to be a success or not, I think that has passed, and I just don't think it's been very good. If I'm going to be brutally honest, there is a complete lack of logic. I mean, I've tried my best to find it there, but in the way that they've been presented as a chaotic anarchy-style faction, it's so contrived and so overproduced. It's just very, very confusing to me. When they were showing up at the WWE Performance Center, the security obviously sucked. They felt like the least threatening stable, and they were meant to feel threatening. They were overturning cars that they obviously didn't overturn. Now we get the news that they're exclusive to Raw, so a chaotic anarchy-style faction adheres to the rules of brand extension and adheres to the rules of the brand split. What is that? And now every time they're invading the show, they have a Retribution-style logo. So they've got a corporate logo. And on top of that, their gear and their merchandise is sold on WWEshop.com. How, as a logical fan, are you supposed to look at them and not think that they're signed WWE Superstars? WWE has tried to portray them like they're these outside faction. They don't know who they are. They're not WWE Superstars. They might not even be wrestlers. They're just trying to invade the Performance Center, trying to invade the Thunderdome, yet you're selling their merch on WWEshop.com. And for weeks, they had video packages which opened the show. Again, how does this anarchy-style faction work like that? It doesn't. It's logic that is so oxymoronic, really. It's an oxymoron. That's exactly what they are. Oh, we don't know who they are, and they're trying to create chaos and anarchy, but we're going to play a video package on them for 5 minutes to let you know exactly what they did. In reality, you wouldn't talk about them at all. You wouldn't acknowledge them at all on commentary. You wouldn't hype them up. If there was someone that was making a legit invasion and hijacking your show, you wouldn't talk about them. You wouldn't do anything, because you don't do that when a fan comes in the ring. When a fan jumps in the ring at an event, you don't even mention it anymore. If anything, they cut the camera away. Do that. Make it feel real. I think that's the problem here, is that, yes, WWE storylines, there is a suspension of disbelief, and you have to sort of throw away logic at the door sometimes when you watch pro wrestling, but sometimes it's just too much. Sometimes it's just too much, and you need to try. I think the baseline for when I watch my television shows is I want them to have a little bit of logic. Makes sense. That should be the complete baseline for the show. Makes sense. That's all I ask. And then anything else, and I know, pro wrestling, it doesn't make sense. Who does Irish whips? They shouldn't bounce off the ropes. Why doesn't a babyface ever come out to help another babyface? All of this sort of stuff. If there's a brutal, heated feud, why do they start having headlocks and all that sort of stuff? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That's pro wrestling. But when you're trying to tell good stories, you've got to try. You've got to try. And I think that's the problem here. And one more thing I will say about Retribution, or two more things, actually, I'll say before I finish up here. One, last night on Monday Night Raw, when Retribution hacked into the show and did their promo, BT Sport, as obviously a Brit, I watched Monday Night Raw live on BT Sport, they cut to commercial. So we missed, over here in the UK, about 50% of what Retribution actually had to say. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, whatever, but frustrating. BT Sport, fix that, please, because that's not the first time something like that has happened. Secondly, and finally, before we wrap this up here, what the hell is going on with all of these camera cuts in WWE? Camera cuts are bad anyway in WWE. Whenever there's a fight, and on like Raw Underground, there is a million, and I'm not exaggerating, a million camera cuts, and it's different camera angle, shoot here, shoot here, shoot here, shoot here. And you can't even follow the action because you're trying to follow the camera cuts first. How can I follow what's going on the screen when I'm about to have a seizure or a fit? Because it's just, honestly, it's like epileptic, you know. This program may contain flashing images and a billion camera cuts because Kevin Dunn has got his finger on the camera cut button, honestly, click, 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 click. It's ridiculous. I remember when they had a Goldberg Roman Reigns segment in the Performance Center. It was one of those first empty arena Performance Center shows. And you could hear the director or the camera operator telling them to go to different shots. And when he said it out loud, it was comical. It was comical because there was that many. It was 3, 2, 4, 1, 5, 6, 2, 3, 1. And I was like, calm down. Calm down. Let the moment simmer. Let it, tell the story. And last night it was the same. Retribution comes out. The camera guy just goes crazy. I don't know what he was going on. Maybe he was having a seizure from all the camera cuts because they're going crazy. A million different camera cuts. The camera shaking and all that. And I get it. They're trying to sell chaos. They're trying to sell anarchy. They're trying to sell confusion. Have one camera, 2 cameras, that's it. Maybe just use the hard cam. Give it that all the camera operators have run away and you're just using the hard cam. It's so not necessary. It's so not necessary. And for me, it ruined what was a great angle last night because I thought the ending of Raw was really good. I thought the ending of Raw was really solid. Retribution came out. The camera cuts pissed me off. But then the Hurt Business came out. They looked great. I enjoyed the fight that they had. And then Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee dive over the top rope. It was a great finish. But those camera cuts coming off of Raw, the first thing I thought of, those camera cuts are so annoying and they took me so out of it and it was so frustrating. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the identities of Retribution, being none other than Dio Maddin, Mia Yim, Shane Thorne, Mercedes Martinez, and Dominik Dijakovic? Did you guess? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos before. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.